I promise.
I promise.
I promise.
I promise I will answer the call.
I promise I will answer the call.
I promise.
In good weather
And bad.
For small and large.
From land, sea,
Or air.
Near
and far.
I will answer.
I will answer.
I promise. I will answer the call.
This is my job.
This is my job.
This is my job.
This is my job, and so much more.
It is challenging. It is amazing.
Sometimes it's very hard.
It is meaningful.
Sometimes it's heartbreaking.
It is extremely rewarding.
I promise. I promise.
I promise.
I promise.
Will you promise?
Will you promise?
To just start somewhere and make a world of difference.
I promise.
I promise.
Have with our guests, and you can see the looks in those kids' faces when at the end of the day, at the end of a show, end of an interaction, and the joy that you see in their faces is something that can't be compared to any other job, I don't think.
We see the inspiration all the time, and it goes on all throughout our park, whether you're working with the sharks and the stingrays, the flamingos, or the killer whales. People have that level of inspiration, and it's great to see those questions and that kind of wonder building within them.
I know that when I leave for the end of the day, there are multiple kids that are going to have a new appreciation for these animals, and that's really what it's all about.
Not only do I want you to be excited about seeing the animal, but I want you to know that animal and appreciate it, and eventually it may even wind up saving that animal.
I work at Blue Horizons now, and it's an awesome show. People are crying. Just the uniqueness of what we do there, it draws people's emotions, you know, those connective emotions.
They'll have an appreciation for the environment, the animal, and where it lives, not only here at Seaworld, but outside of Seaworld, where we find it in the wild.
I think they come here and they're affected through the entertainment aspects that we do, and that drives them to then go out through their lives and seek out other information and other ways to impact the world.
They will tell me, you would not know what you did for my child when they went and watched the Shamu show or the dolphin show. They talked about Shamu or the dolphin show or the sea lion show for weeks after that. We read books. We went and found out about sea lions. We found out about dolphins.
One show or one interaction can have impact on one family or one child, and they go home and they tell their friends and their coworkers and their classmates about animals and about how we can make a difference. I think that is just the best day ever.
The connection with Seaworld started when I was 4 years old. It was the first time I came to Shamu Stadium and I saw a killer whale show, and I told my dad, I have to do this.
I was 5 years old, and I came here with my family and saw the Shamu show, and I said, that's it, at 5.
And for me, that was absolutely what happened. It was trips here at Seaworld that inspired me to want to work with marine animals.
When I came to Seaworld, I was forever changed, and I wanted to be a part of changing people like I had been changed, and that's why I do what I do.
I think of one particular camper that was part of our camp program, and now she is off doing manatee research in Florida, and she's on her way to her PhD.
My first introduction to Seaworld was a visit just with my family, very young kid. That is what really encouraged me to want to get involved with the animals.
I've always been interested in animals, but the foundation I got here at Seaworld really put me on a path towards marine science that I don't know that I necessarily would have hit otherwise. After college, I'm probably going to pursue a degree in either biological oceanography or in marine biology, so a pretty big impact overall.
I currently have a mentor student that came in not really knowing what a coral was. She wasn't really that familiar with it. She's just enjoyed it so much doing her weekly research that I think she's really been inspired to want to conserve coral reefs and maybe even steer her career in that direction.
Our camp program started 15 years ago. Imagine kids back in high school 15 years ago have already gone on to college, finished college, and now they're in their career or are seeking out their career. And this is, for a lot of them, this is their career. And I'm so pleased to see these kids come back. It's kind of a full circle feeling for us, and it's great.
These animals impact the people that come to see them. They change them, they move them, they make them stop and think, they make them laugh, they make them cry.
We're here to educate people about the animals. If they walk away from here and they've had that amazing vacation moment where they've been able to interact with the animals or learn something about the animals that they can share with their families and make that lifelong memory, to me that's what it's about.
These animals, they are ambassadors. They are ambassadors not just for their species, but they're ambassadors for the aquatic world. They're ambassadors for the ocean. They're saying, take stock. Stop and take a second and look at the environment I live in and make a difference. Make a difference for me and my family and my species. Make a difference for all these other animals.
I think about how many people we affect on a daily basis. Each show, I mean, we hold 6,000 people per show. So even if you affect one person per show, when we're doing 7 shows a day, that's 7 people a day that you can ultimately change their life. How amazing is that?
There's always a benefit to having these animals in these zoological settings for many different reasons. One, there's no way you can learn about these animals in the wild as much as we're learning from them in a zoological setting. We have learned so much about specifically our killer whales. We know about how old the calves are when they start to learn independence, how long the mother nurses, the growth rate of that calf. We know about social status with each animal and social structure and how that changes. All those things would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do in the wild. But we do those sort of studies here at Seaworld.
What does Seaworld mean to me? Seaworld is my life, has been my life. It's been my family. There's nothing in the world that compares to having a rapport and a relationship with an animal like this. But there's also nothing that compares to watching the impact that that relationship that you have has on the public. It's as exciting and inspiring for me to watch a baby killer whale be born as it is to watch, you know, the 6-year-old or the 10-year-old in the audience. I've had people tell me that their children were so affected by what they saw that they wanted to learn more about whales. Where do they come from? And when they find out they're from all oceans of the world, and they care about all of the oceans of the world. So that what they see here and how it impacts.
Conservation is not sitting back and criticizing. The activists sit back, they raise a lot of money, they spread misinformation, and they criticize. That's not really doing the work that is required to save these animals. And there are people here who are around the clock caring for these animals that have been rescued, rehabilitated, many released right here on our coastline. The animals that need our help, really, that happens all hours of the day, and Seaworld is committed to being there and responding to those animals anytime, any place. There are people here at Seaworld who will not be home for Christmas because they're out rescuing a manatee. That is the reality of conservation.
Earlier this year, Seaworld was requested to help with the mass stranding of pilot whales in the Keys. 2 of the animals were determined to come back to Seaworld. One of those animals has a curvature of the spine. Seaworld collaborated with local orthopedic surgeon clinic, and they helped us to build a brace for this animal. Here at Seaworld, we're doing physical therapy 3 times a day on this animal at this point. We have come up with innovative ideas over the years to care for our animals. We've made wetsuits for our manatees. We've used ultrasound to care for them. We've done C-sections on animals here, and this is just one more of our innovative ideas to help care. This job's probably one of the best jobs you could ever ask for. We get to play with animals, get to rescue animals, get to rehab animals, get to spend my time making a difference to the animals that are in our care. I've been with Seaworld for 19 years. I started with this company when I was a senior in high school in Ohio. I was an animal trainer at that time, and I came into animal care a couple years later. And I've spent since then learning and seeing so many unique and positive things throughout my career that every day is something new. Every day is going to be something unique, interesting. I never know when we're going to have a big rescue show up or a small rescue. And sometimes those small rescues become the big ones real quick for you. This doesn't just go on one day here or one day there. This goes on 365 days a year, around the clock, work. There's not a dollar amount you can put on what we do for the animals. When it comes to rescuing an animal, we get the call and we go. If that means we're going across the United States, then we go across the United States. You know, if we weren't here to do what we're doing, a lot of these animals, unfortunately, probably wouldn't survive. There is an emotional tie to every animal you bring in. You put a lot of time, and this is the part people don't see about SeaWorld as much, the amount of time we put into rehabbing and rescuing these animals. And when you put all that time into an animal, and then the animal expires or dies on you, you know, it does. At times it will be a hard thing. Other times we bring them back to SeaWorld and work for years and years to get these animals rehabilitated, and then we're able to release them, watch them, track them. Our guys run around the clock. Whatever it takes to ensure that we're doing the best for the animals, that's what we do.
Come on, Dottie. She's not coming over. Something's not right with Dottie. I'm really concerned about her. We need to call the vets.
So Dottie had stopped eating. We were contacted by the trainers that she wasn't coming over. She was logging at the surface. We were fortunately able to get a blood sample from her. The blood sample showed that she had elevated kidney enzymes, indicating that she had problems with her kidneys. So we needed to get hands on her right away, so we decided to move her to our back medical pool. Because of the life-threatening nature of the problem, we decided that we needed to act quickly and contact UCSD to see first how we can potentially dialyze her to decrease the number of toxic waste products in her blood. For her condition, I thought it was best to contact a human specialist, somebody that does this on a day-to-day basis. They're experts in their field, and this is all that they do, and I thought it is necessary for her condition to get this done and resolved quickly for her benefit, because I knew that we didn't have that much time.
Well, it was a pretty tense time. I mean, the dolphin was very, very ill, so then we were able to start trying to do peritoneal dialysis, which is the way to get rid of the excess waste products that have accumulated in that situation because of our kidneys not working. So that worked pretty well, but it appears that we did enough exchanges to control her potassium and to control the kidney failure until really the next day when we started trying to unblock the kidneys and get them going again.
Well, when I first got the phone call, I had to repeat the question to make sure to confirm that you really wanted me to work on a dolphin, but I still was pretty apprehensive about the whole idea. Once I started the procedure, having done so many of these, it was no different in my technique. I kind of got into what I call a zone, and I'm really focused on the stone, focused on the surgery. The only thing in the back of my mind, I was worried about the fact that this was a 500-pound mammal, so that was the only other concern. But other than that, once we started the procedure, I felt very focused, and I just really wanted to get this done correctly for her because I knew it was kind of a life-threatening situation for her. Everything was pretty standard. Put the scope through her urethra, into the bladder. Immediately I saw the stone. I was able then to take the fiber optic laser fiber and pass the fiber through the scope up to the stone and just turn the stone into dust, just like we normally do for a human being. So everything was standard other than the fact it was not a human being. Yeah, I felt really gratified. In fact, seeing her today, several months later, and seeing that she's doing great, it's a great feeling. It's priceless, that's for sure. And I felt really honored that I was called to be able to use my skills for Dottie. It's a real honor.
You know, to see her back out here is so exciting. I think there was a period of time that we weren't sure if she was going to come back out, and for her to be out here with her other animals, and she's budding back up with the animals that she usually swims with, it's really exciting, and the team is very proud to have her back out here. That's where she belongs, out here with everybody. Yeah, she's doing great.
Yeah, I think this whole case is a great demonstration of a melding of both animal and human medicine coming together at its best to save an animal's life. So, really happy.
If I say love her, yes. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I love you. I love you. Yeah.
There's a statement in Blackfish made that we separate our calves and mother killer whales, and that is far from the truth. We recognize the importance of family bond. We currently have Katina with 2 of her babies in the pool, and we recognize this and we keep them together as a family. We also have the largest database of information about calves and how they relate with their mother, and when they do their independence, when they nurse, when they stop nursing, all that we've learned from having these family groups together. But as a zoological professional, it is not true that we separate our mothers and calves.
Unless there was an absolute critical medical need, we never made the decision to separate babies from their moms. You know, we never ever moved a calf unless the mother had already weaned it. I heard those same claims in the movie Blackfish, and I, you know, scratching my head going, I don't know what park these guys worked at, but not where I worked.
I didn't know it was going to happen, so I wasn't expecting it. And one day they say, okay, Sam, you're ready to go.
Come on, you got it.
You're going to stand on the whale. You're going to dive off the whale. The whale's going to swim under you and pick you up again. And then you're going to do a perimeter ride around the pool.
Good. Keep moving. Just right into the slide out.
They just told me to go do it, and I did it. Wow, I just rode a killer whale.
In the movie that you see with the woman swimming with the killer whale, that was me. That wasn't her. That was 2 years of my career leading up to that point that they twisted and took from me. The video that was used in the film was of my very first time getting in the water with a killer whale. It was one of the most amazing moments of my life, and I worked very hard to get to that point in my life. I studied biology and psychology. I specialized in behavior analysis. I spent 4 years getting my degree, and then I spent several other years getting experience at other facilities before I even came to Seaworld. The one thing that I want people to know after watching the movie is that it's not true.
What frustrates me is that you want to believe what you're being told and seen on a documentary like that, but it's not truthful. They're spinning the facts to meet an agenda, and their agenda is no animals in a zoological setting. We feel just the opposite about that. It's unfortunate that they take those facts and they're able to manipulate them in a way that distorts what we do. And what we do is we are very good at taking care of these animals. We have the best zoological professionals in the world that spend their entire lives and careers taking care of these animals.
Our animals are better cared for than many people.
We have a lot of people who love these animals, and it doesn't matter what time of day it is, it doesn't matter what's going on, they are our priority 100% of the time.
Anything that we need or that we think that the animals need, the veterinarians are there.
We have a full-time veterinary staff, and if ever anything looks the slightest bit off with these animals, I can pick up a phone and call them, and they can be there within minutes.
I've been privy to big, major medical procedures on 3,000-pound walruses, but I've also sat with a veterinarian with a butterfly fish and literally not only x-rayed it to find out what was going wrong, but then used a very small feeding tube to give it some food because it was having a problem digesting. And that's the commitment we're going to make. That's why we're all here. And the park realizes that there's the same value to the 3-ounce butterfly fish as to the 3,000-pound walrus.
What we can learn from our animals in a park applies to the animals out in the natural environment.
We have a lot of people from our professional community who approach us with questions, hey, have you ever seen this before? Because chances are we have, simply because we have so many animals that we take care of.
We have a more aggressive preventive medicine program than what you or I might be used to with ourselves or even with our family pets at home.
We make sure we take a holistic approach at the care for the animals. And a big part of it is preventative and proactive care.
Vets are right there to say, let's do an assessment. Do we need to take a blood sample? Do we need to take an x-ray? Do we need to just do a physical exam?
People don't realize that when you work with animals, you have to be able to figure out what's going on with a patient that really can't tell you what doesn't feel well.
If there's something just slightly off, you're aware of it. And depending on your interpretation of that behavior, you may call the vets in to say, hey, I think something might be a little off here. Can we take a blood sample?
And we can be proactive in that way. And so we can catch illnesses and injuries way before they get to the point of endangering the animals.
Some of the most important behaviors we train. And at Seaworld, it's a collaborative effort.
It's the science of training animals to cooperate with us so that we can give them great care.
And without the staff there to help teach the animals how to do that, the vets really couldn't do their job as well. So we are a very close-knit team and we work together closely.
We do this through the application of positive reinforcement. So the animals are making a conscious decision to perform a behavior that allows us to take better care of them.
And our animals are conditioned to give us every kind of sample and remain still for any kind of test really that you could come up with.
We do things from the day-to-day, such as cleaning their teeth.
We can ask a beluga whale to come over, take a needle, stick it in its tail fluke, withdraw a blood sample.
We basically are limited only by what the veterinarians want. When the veterinarians say, we'd like to condition this, we'd like to have that, we train it.
It's awesome because it's one of the most rewarding behaviors for me. Whether it's having a dolphin slide up on a scale or having a llama go into a chute for a hoof inspection, it's one of those things that the animals are participating in their own care, which is really, really cool.
In any relationship, one of the most important things you have to have is trust. And to do that with killer whales takes a long time. You have to invest a long time in that. You can't just come up to these guys and pretend like you're their friend. You've got to mean it. You've got to show them that you care about them, show them that they can trust you, show them that pretty much they can depend on you for anything. When you're working with an animal like this, you know, an animal that can hurt you just by playing with you, you have to spend the time and you have to really develop the relationship and show the animal that they can trust you, and you have to trust them. Because literally you're trusting them with your life. If your employees or if your people see you right there with them, doing the job with them and working with them in a way that builds that trusting bond, I think then they're going to trust you. But if you are always looking down on your people, or if you're always just telling them what to do instead of asking them to do it and then showing them how, and building that trusting relationship and showing the people that they can come to you when they're having a bad time or they don't understand something that you want them to do. I think that's where the trust and the bond comes in, and that's where that's, you know, money in the bank. It's time well spent.
Is a step-by-step process. It takes time. The most important thing is the daily interactions, the one-on-one time, the teaching. The trainers are actually doing what's called a relationship session. Right now, you're seeing a variety of trainers interacting with whales in a one-on-one type interaction. They're spending time looking in their eyes, maybe rubbing them down, or just being quiet with them. Sometimes it isn't a behavior at all. It's just hanging out, just being together.
One of the whales that I get to spend a lot of my time with is Kayla. She's an awesome animal, amazing, athletic, beautiful, sweet, and we have a really good friendship between us.
And it's this bond that will get you in the water nose to nose and dog paddling with these giants. And once they're your swimming buddies, killer whales will take you for a killer ride.
My favorite behavior to perform is a behavior that we call a rocket hop. And basically what we do is we go underwater with Shamu and we drive all the way down to the bottom of the pool, 36 feet below, and they're pushing you by your feet. And then you just remove your feet from their nose and turn around, and you can actually put your hands just like this right on their nose and put your feet right on their flippers. but they come up out of the water and kind of dive backwards and send you sailing, and you can get 25, 30 feet out of the water. And I'll tell you, you feel every bit of their power when you come up. It's pretty much the coolest feeling ever.
Some of the stuff in Blackfish is true. I think you should have strong opinions about the movie. Blackfish is a movie that is designed to make you feel. It is not a movie designed to make you think. I think it's one-sided. And 85% of Blackfish is lies. I wrote 3 pages of notes and of things that I wrote down that just weren't true, and I was a marine mammal trainer for 5 years. I was working with killer whales 7 or 8 months ago, and today is January 2014, so yeah, just last year.
So you're one of the most current former killer whale trainers?
Yeah, I would say I'm probably a really current former killer whale trainer.
When someone watches Blackfish, it is very easy for them to leave that movie feeling and know.
I assure you that they are in the best of hands. There is no harm being done to them. There is only the best possible care being provided for them.
It sure doesn't seem that way when you watch Blackfish.
No, of course it doesn't. But Blackfish, if Blackfish was two-sided and they showed, you know, this is what some people think and this is what, you know, actually happens, I think people would walk away with a different perspective. But Blackfish sells way more tickets if they paint Seaworld out to be this big, bad, greedy corporation who, you know, takes whales from the wild and makes them jump for fish, which is a great story and a great way to make money.
But is it true?
No, it's not true. It's not true.
Well, there's other Seaworld trainers in the movie who say that is true.
Of course. And I can't speak for those other trainers, but a lot of those trainers worked as a marine mammal trainer decades and decades ago. And so their experience was, I'm guessing, different than mine. The other reason is you get to be in a movie, and that's kind of cool. So that's appealing for some trainers. And some trainers, and I don't want to go into the details of these people, but some trainers parted ways with Seaworld in not the best of way. And if you are a former employer and angry at your former employer, and a documentary crew comes by and decides to include you in their film that bashes your former employer, then that may be something they want to take part in. I know virtually every trainer at Seaworld Orlando and trainers all over the world that work at other facilities, and none of us would work weekends, nights, miss holidays with our family, not get paid very much, if we thought that these animals weren't being cared for. It makes no sense. We are the most passionate and enthusiastic people for animals, all animals. And we would never allow ourselves to be in a situation where any animals were not being taken care of the best way possible.
These animals are called killer whales, and they have killed people who work with them. Doesn't that seem to suggest that people shouldn't be working with these wild animals?
There's risk to working with every animal. Killer whales have killed people. Elephants have killed people. Tigers have killed people. And driving to work has killed people. There's going to be risk with whatever we do. And as trainers, and as a trainer, we're very aware of that. And because we're aware of it, we train correctly, we follow the safety procedures correctly, and make sure that we're not only creating a safe environment for the animals, but we're creating a safe environment for ourselves. So I think it's one-sided, and I think it's a blind statement, because until you've worked with them and until you've been in that environment and put yourself at risk, and you know what you're doing, you really can't speak on that. That's something I can speak on. I don't think that's something someone who hasn't worked with them can speak on. It's not your job to decide what's too risky for me or what's risky enough for me.
But do I have to have worked with the animals to know that they can kill you?
No, but you also know that plenty of other animals are just as risky and plenty of other environments are just as risky. But for whatever reason, people choose to just focus on killer whales. And I think a lot of that is because it's sensational right now. We have the Cove that came out, and then we have Blackfish, and it's sexy to not like SeaWorld right now. And it's cool to think that you're a whale advocate.
After seeing Blackfish, some people say that at the bare minimum, SeaWorld should at least give these killer whales a larger area to swim in. How do you respond to that?
With my experience with killer whales, we do have one pool that is much larger than all the other pools. And attached to those pools are smaller pools. When we give those whales access to the very largest pool and our smallest pools at the same time, the majority of the time they choose to be in that small pool.
Why?
I can't think for the whale, but what I can say is that as trainers, we make all of these environments very stimulating and reinforcing for these animals. And so if one pool is really fun and rewarding and reinforcing, then they want to be there. And I've experienced that with all animals, dolphins, sea lions, everything. Even dolphins in open water pens, there are so many stories of them having access to the ocean and choosing to come back to the pen.
So let's talk about open water pens. That's what some people say should happen. Take these animals out of SeaWorld, at least put them in an open water pen.
Okay. That would be so detrimental to these animals. I would be so sad if that happened. That is such a drastic change from what they were used to, that type of change is only going to cause them stress. And when you are dealing with animals who are used to the perfect amount of food, the perfect water quality, the perfect water temperature, and then you're putting them in an open ocean pen where the currents change and the temperature changes and there are weird animals and weird fish all swimming by and they're exposed to germs that they have never been exposed to, you are putting that animal at risk. And why would you do that? Because it makes you feel better? That's not an okay reason. It needs to be the animals first. People need to stop and think about what is best for the animals, not what would make them feel good going to sleep at night.
But if we're talking about feelings, so many people feel after they watch Blackfish that what is best for these animals is to not be at SeaWorld, to not be in these parks.
Well, Blackfish is a movie that is designed to make you feel. It is not a movie designed to make you think. And as someone who worked with these animals, this is coming from me. I don't represent SeaWorld. SeaWorld isn't paying me. I don't care if SeaWorld watches this and hates it or loves it. This is just my opinion. Those whales not only have great lives at SeaWorld, but would have a much better life at SeaWorld than compared to an open ocean pen.
Kyle, how much of Blackfish would you say is true versus not true?
I would say 15% of it is true, and I would say 85% of it is false.
Give us a couple quick examples of the 15% that is true.
I think a lot of the stuff that was done in the early days, 60s, 70s, that stuff is true. I mean, there's video footage of it happening. There is video footage of whales being taken from the ocean. That happened. I don't agree with it. I don't think anyone now agrees with it. That was a mindset back then that's no longer appropriate.
Then why would you choose to go and work with those animals every day?
That's a really good question. I think if the animals, if SeaWorld or any organization was going out and taking healthy animals out of the ocean, I wouldn't work for that company. I wouldn't do that. And I think that's where a little of the blurry lines come through for people who watch Blackfish, because they assume all of these whales that are at SeaWorld were just plucked from the oceans. But the truth, as of today, is that those whales are all bred at SeaWorld. And more importantly, outside of killer whales, the dolphins, the sea lions, false killer whales, pilot whales, manatees, those are all rescued, and with the intent of them to be rehabilitated and sent back into the wild.
So then what's some of the 85% that's not true? That seems like most of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's most of the movie, so I don't feel like we have time to go into all those answers. But I wrote 3 pages of notes, and of things that I wrote down that just weren't true. I mean, the opening scenes of the movie are the killer whales and the trainers in the water doing all of these behaviors. And that's normal behaviors that are done all the time, but it's set to really scary music, so it looks like, oh wow, these animals are getting aggressive. Or I remember one of the trainers, I think her name was Sam, she was talking about, all right, well, you know, I remember the first day I swam with killer whales and I got on his back and, you know, went around the perimeter of the pool. And they paired that description with another video of another trainer, not Sam, doing that. That is not bad. Nothing that was bad, but it wasn't true. The viewer believes that they're watching video of Sam doing this thing that she's talking about doing. And that's not the video. And that is what they continually did throughout the movie. Another example of that is when they're talking about aggressive incidents with killer whales and trainers, and they end it with this zoom in on one of the trainers with a bloody face, making you believe that that bloody face came from an incident with a killer whale, where I know that incident was him accidentally running into a screen, and he has a bloody face.
What do you mean a screen?
A screen that they have on stage. So they have big screens on stage, he ran into them, you know, cut his face open, he's all bloody, they got video of it, and then they said, you know, killer whales are really dangerous, they aggress on humans, blah, 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 and then they show a picture of a trainer with a bloody face, making you think that it's from the killer whale, when in actuality it's not. Blackfish makes the whales very anthropomorphic, meaning they give them human characteristics, like they want to seek revenge on the trainers, or that they are sad. And if you're an animal behaviorist, you know that you can't possibly do that because we don't know what the animals are feeling. But what we do know are the facts. And the facts are the complete opposite of what Blackfish puts forth. The biggest takeaway that I got from Blackfish, and the really positive thing I got from Blackfish, is you have to do your research. You cannot watch a 90-minute movie on Netflix and then the next day go on Facebook and say, I'm a whale advocate because Seaworld is bad. Because you haven't done your research, you watched one movie.
So what do you say to someone who says, SeaWorld, zoos, whatever, we should not be keeping animals in captivity to make money off of them?
Oh, I think those people forget about the incredible impact that zoos and aquariums have on people, but more specifically on children. When a child goes and visits a zoo or aquarium or SeaWorld, and they get to go up to a pane of glass and see a dolphin come in front of them, that child now has a perception of animals that he or she has never had. And with that perception, they create this interest in preserving those animals. And so that interest in preserving those animals goes out, and then they pick up their litter at the beach, or they want to go study biology, or they want to go do conservation. And that would have never happened if they didn't have the experience that's only available through a zoo or an aquarium. The second part of that is that these zoos and aquariums do make money. And so when you have such a huge, big organization filled with all these resources, and they get to utilize those to take care of animals, that's actually something I want to be a part of. Because I know the 7 killer whales that I worked with at SeaWorld Orlando get the best possible care and treatment, okay? That in turn brings a lot of people to the park because those killer whales are impressive and they're powerful and people want to see that. And when people come to the park, they spend money. And then guess where that money goes? Yeah, it goes to the bottom line, it goes to stockholders, I get all that. But it also goes to rescuing, rehabilitating, and spreading the message of conservation. No other organization does it to the level that SeaWorld does that. The amount of money I can only guess on how much it takes, or how much it costs to rescue an animal and then rehabilitate them. Now, if that animal cannot be released back into the wild, then the only option left is to take care of it. And again, there's no better place for an animal to be taken care of, in my experience, than at SeaWorld. We have 7 killer whales. 7. there was a training staff, a full-time training staff of around, I think, 35 people who worked 40 hours a week, training staff, to take care of 7 killer whales. That is, what is that, 5 trainers full-time per killer whale. That does not include all the people who are in charge of making sure that the water quality is perfect, that the temperature is right, that the salt water levels are right, all that. That does not include the entire vet staff that is not only on call in Orlando, but also a separate vet staff that is on call on a national level. So when you add all those people in, you could easily have over 100 people who have full-time jobs to take care of 7 whales. But that same amount of care, because I've worked with other animals besides killer whales, goes into a parrot. And when you think Seaworld, you don't think parrot. But that parrot who gets a cold or gets a flu or whatever it gets the same amount of vet care, gets the same amount of support with the training staff and all those things I just talked about, and it's a bird that nobody ever sees. Because Seaworld does what's right first for the animals.
And people that have these really strong opinions after watching Blackfish have sort of taken up a cause against Seaworld and killer whales in captivity.
Yeah. When people watch Blackfish and they get really hyped up, they become, now a very popular term, armchair activists. And they update their status and say, I'm never going to Seaworld again. And they send out tweets to Seaworld saying what they did was wrong. And then they go to bed and they feel good because they think they've made a change. And they haven't. They haven't made a change. If you place your energy and passion to save the killer whales at Seaworld, I'm telling you that that is passion and energy wasted because these whales have incredible lives. But if you put that passion and energy towards illegal poaching in Africa or the abuse of farm animals or puppy mills, where animals actually need help, then all of a sudden you've created incredible change. And that is something to be proud of.